Welcome to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are on a mission to interview women and the occasional token man about how their passion and purpose have collided to create healthy relationships and profitable businesses. I am Elizabeth Denham here with Rebecca Monet. We are the co-founders of The Coterie for Women and publishers of the Franchise Woman magazine. So Rebecca, how are you?
Doing good. Happy hump day. Is it hump day?
It is hump day. So come to hump day happy hour. Yes.
Hump day happy hour. We get to go meet with all those fun women here shortly. So
yeah, and I think we're going to have a good group today. So if you have not signed up, just show up.
Hump day happy hour with Liz and Beck and Liz. All right. So let's talk about roses and thorns. What is your rose and thorn this week?
Well,
it's only fair, Elizabeth.
She's putting me on the spot because she knows I'm unprepared.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes that's the best. The spontaneous answer. Mm-hmm.
Watching me squirm.
It's a gift that women have. We're spontaneous
and creative, because we talked about that on another episode.
Creativity. That's
right. So my rose is that everybody in the family seems to be doing well right now. When you have 5 kids, sometimes we have boats that are rocking. We have been fairly lucky that all of the boats don't rock typically at the same time, but we've had a few days of calm. Everybody seems to be good. Everybody's in their little own world. The love triangle seems to be doing all right.
Yay!
We mentioned that before. The little girlfriend has come over a couple of times. So he's happy. I still think the little third, triangle boy isn't speaking to him, but we'll get through that.
Yeah.
But all the boats are sitting pretty calmly in the water right now. So I think that's my rose. It's a bigger gift than you might think when you have as many kids and extended family as we have. We have like 27 people in my immediate family. So there's a lot of boats in the water.
A lot of boats to float. Yes.
And everybody seems to be on an even keel right now, to continue the metaphor. And I'm very thankful for that, because we've had ups and downs, as everybody has during this pandemic, and beginning of life children crisis and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
I'm feeling pretty good about everybody, which is a moment I'm going to savor. I'm savoring the moment. I think my thorn
Put it
is
in your diary.
Extra stupid. It's just that I don't have any wine for hump day happy hour.
Oh no.
I'm trying to do this darn Whole30, so we're not keeping things in the house. And so then when I actually think, well, maybe I should have a glass of wine at happy hour, I don't have the option, which is why we're not buying it. But it's thorny. Like, sometimes I'm bitter about it.
You're bitter that you can't have
bitter
wine,
that I'm on this stupid diet, and then I'm trying
to whining about not having wine.
Right. Totally. And that's just totally off the topic. But we interviewed a franchise family that has a winery. They're franchisees in a wine franchise. And I think I named it, I think I titled the argument, "The Families Who Wine Together," or something like that.
Wine together.
If you wine together, you stay together. So that's, I guess if that's my thorn, I'm doing all right.
You're doing really,
I can
really
survive
good,
without wine at happy hour.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Even if
that's okay. I don't drink alcohol at all. So I still have fun.
You do.
These happy hours.
I know.
Hump day happy hour.
I've been doing it for a month now. So although I did take a break at the month and I've had some wine here and there, but I'm back on track.
Okay.
So tell me yours, rose and thorn.
My thorn. Let me think. Thorn. Life. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes I feel like I'm in a game of dodgeball. And I'm the only one still out on the court, and everybody has these hard rubber balls and they're throwing them at me and I'm dodging them. I'm actually pretty good at that. But
you are a target.
I'm a target. Yes, I'm a target. It's like I withstood all of it. Everybody else is already out of the game. I'm still standing, but now everybody's throwing. Did you guys play dodgeball when you were in school?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I think
Yeah.
it's outlawed now. I think it's
It
considered too
probably is
aggressive.
because it was kind of mean
Kind of mean. Yeah.
and
In my day, it
dangerous.
was
If you were
just
a good shot and you
fun.
wanted to knock somebody's block off, you could certainly do it.
Yeah, if you had some kind of beef with that person, you know. So yeah, that's kind of my life the last several weeks. I
Mhm.
feel like I'm solo in a dodgeball game, and
Mhm.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
How's that for a thorn?
That's a thorn. Your
I
boats are
mean, you're
all a
getting
rocking.
metaphorical. You want to talk
Well,
about ships floating? I can be in a dodgeball game.
yeah. So that's a hard
Simple.
thorn because nobody wants to feel alone on the court, you know, with balls being
I
aimed
hadn't
at
thought
you.
about that, but yeah, that's the hard part. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting you say that because just when you feel alone, you get a phone call. And that to me
Mhm.
is the rose in all of this. I had two beautiful phone calls this weekend with my dear friends Dawn and then with my friend Sue, and we've been friends for years. And both of them encouraging, big picture oriented, helping me see sort of what I refuse to see, or having me pay attention to certain parts of my life that I'm not paying attention to. And in fact, right before we got on here, I got a call from my, I call him little brother. He's 2 years younger than me. Still my little brother,
Still
right?
your little brother.
My little brother from Seattle. And he says to me, he says, Rebecca, I'm going to kick you in the gut. And I want you to know that this is coming from love and from being your brother, and you need to hear this. And it was so, he positioned it so perfectly,
Mhm.
which was, I'm going to tell you something that's going to be hard for you to accept. And it might even make you cry, and it did. Um, but I'm telling you because I love you and because I care about you. And he was stepping up almost into this warrior protector side,
Mhm.
you know, like you would see with a spouse or a boyfriend or a big brother. This is my little brother who is stepping up. So he did. He kicked me in the gut and gave me some bad news that I didn't want to hear. And but he did so in such a loving way
Mhm.
that it was really a rose, because I knew he was doing it because he loved me and he was trying to protect me. I mean, think about that. Think about having friends and family members that have your back like that. That's a
Yeah.
rose. I don't care what color that rose is. That's a
Well, it is.
rose.
And what it was he was stepping on the court and being your defender
Yes,
because you were
he
feeling
was.
alone on the court. And what he did was show you that you are not alone on the court.
I'm not alone.
And
I'm
that's
not alone.
everything. And to me, the best people in your life, I was struggling with some parenting thing a few weeks ago, and my friend Allison did the same thing for me. She said, I told her the whole thing and what I had said and done. And she said, do you want me to validate you or do you want me to tell you what I think? And
Yeah.
I was like, I
Yeah.
want it to be the same.
Can't be one and the same. You're my
Can it be
friend.
validating and supporting me?
Yeah.
But I said, well, I guess give it to me straight. But she was honest enough to tell me what she really thought. She didn't just validate every single thing that I said or did that she didn't agree with. And I know because of conversations like that I can trust her.
Right.
And she gave
Right.
me the choice. I could have said, no, I don't want to hear it. But who's going to say,
No,
no, I
no,
don't want
just
to
have
hear
me
it?
the fluffy, just give me the fluffy stuff.
Yeah,
Well, and
just say I did everything
in my
perfectly.
brother's case, yeah, in my brother's case, I didn't ask for his advice. I didn't
Yeah.
tell him I was having a problem. He saw
Mm-hmm.
that I was processing things without looking at the big picture, and I had not weighed all the consequences of my decision. He saw that this decision could harm me even when I saw no detriment whatsoever. So
Mm-hmm.
he took a risk by saying, I'm going to kick you in the gut and have you see something you don't want to see, but I'm doing it because I'm going to help you dodge not just a ball, but a bullet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And
Right?
I'm sure that wasn't easy for him to
No.
know that he was going to say something that you might not take well and be willing to
I
say
could have
it
got
anyway.
angry. I could have easily got angry
Oh
and said he
yeah.
was no, he doesn't know what
So
he's
he
talking
he
about.
clearly thought about it before he called you about how he was
He
going to
did.
position it to encourage you to be receptive and not
Yeah,
defensive, which is a gift because
that's a gift.
when you
All of us
know
should have that.
someone what you're going to say is going to put someone on the defensive and be able to diffuse it, that's a pretty big thing. He put a lot of thought into that.
He did. He loves me,
So you are
obviously.
not
Look,
alone on the court.
I'm not alone on the court,
And when you know
and your
that and you
ships aren't going
accept
to
it,
sink.
yeah. I mean, half the
Yeah,
time sometimes we feel that way, but it's not
it's
the
not true.
reality. Clearly, you're not
It's
alone
not
on the
true.
court, but you had isolated yourself in your own mind.
Mhm.
And he
Yep.
came in and showed you that you're not. So what a gift that is. That's a huge rose.
Look at us. Our ships are floating. We're dodging balls. We have protectors. We are knocking it out of the park, girl.
There you go. Not alone
Yeah,
on the court and
we're
not
not alone.
sinking.
None
So
of us are alone. Yeah,
that's it. You just have to be willing to recognize it and accept it.
yeah. And that's our roses and thorns for this week.
Welcome back to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are here today with Nancy Chorpenning, who is a business strategist and coach, corporate refugee, advocate for women, particularly women entrepreneurs, a .com alum, and a millennial mind and a baby boomer body. Say that 3 times quickly. Nancy helps entrepreneurs identify and address the right business issues to succeed with their business. After decades as a corporate publishing executive in Fortune 100s like Time Warner and startups like WebMD, plus her graduate degree in marketing and organizational behavior from Kellogg's, Nancy started her own business advisory practice, C-Suite Advisors, in 2006. And from that has grown the CEO School for Women and corporate refugees, which she's going to tell us all about. But Nancy, welcome to the show. We are delighted to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. That's really, really lovely. I am looking forward to chatting with you.
Well, and the more
Yeah.
we have come to learn about you, the more we have come to appreciate just how much the 3 of us are on the same page in thought process and that kind of thing. But you have such a fascinating, interesting story. And I want to start with one of your more unique experiences of going into the Peace Corps in your 40s. So tell us a little
Yeah, that was my midlife crisis.
bit.
I'd been in corporate America for 20 some years, and every time I would go into a new company and build up the medical publishing operation, it would become very profitable, and so the corporation would then sell it.
Mm.
And publishing is all about relationships. And so this was incredibly disruptive and rarely worked well.
Mm.
But there was a lot of that going on in particularly the 80s and 90s. And I couldn't figure out what was going on because that was not what I had entered business believing. And I was very successful at my jobs, but I wasn't happy. And it took me a while to really figure out that I'd really been living someone else's dream for me.
Mm.
And so I said, I just need time to think. And a very good friend of mine pointed out that he said, you have an adventurous streak a mile wide and you've never done anything with it. You've been the type A, good girl, always doing the right thing, head down, moving forward. And he said, you should join the Peace Corps. And I said, I'm too old to join the Peace Corps. And he goes, no, you're not. And it was one of those little sparks that you get every once in a while. And it prompted me to go and research the heck out of it. And all these things conspired to make my path very simple to that. Starting with the director of Peace Corps actually coming to Boston, where I lived at the time, the following week after hearing this. And I talked to him for half an hour afterwards and said, tell me why I should leave corporate America to join Peace Corps. So long story short, I did that. I sold my condo and put some furniture in storage and basically left
Wow.
and went to Papua New Guinea for 2 years, where as part of an education program, I lived in the capital city and I taught young women, young high school women, ninth and 10th graders, in a really unusual situation. First of all, Papua New Guinea is like go to the end of the earth and turn left, and you're about there. I had to look it up on a map. It's just north of Australia. So I had always said I wanted to go to the South Pacific. Who knew?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but what an amazing experience it was in total. I say that it gave me a new lens through which I see everything differently. And the really wild thing is, this is like 20 years ago, and I'm still feeling that same way about the lens. I just see things differently now, partially because of the perspective that you get from going away from our country and looking back. Um, I was, I just continued to find myself in situations where I would explain to people something about America. They were very curious.
Mhm.
And so I got to look back at it and things that I'd always taken for granted, like the concept of being innocent until proven guilty. Do you know how rare that is in the
Yeah.
world?
Mhm.
It was striking. It was really striking. I also joke that I really came to appreciate American men too, because living in a culture that was very, very paternalistic, and as such, watching the men there in PNG do they pontificated a lot, but they didn't work for the most part. Now, my papa from my host family did, but he was really the exception. And the women worked 4 times harder than any working woman here because they did everything: subsistence farming, caring for the children, caring for the homestead, all the cooking, all the cleaning, all everything. They did it all.
So
Took
were
their
they a
goods to
proxy
market.
for their husbands? Were their husbands getting the credit for this kind of work that they were putting out? Is it that
Yeah,
paternalistic?
I don't think that it was a matter of the work. It was just that that was women's work.
Ah,
So of
gotcha.
course
Yeah.
they did it.
Yeah.
And, well, of course they dug up those peanuts and they're going to take them to the market now and sell them. And it's like, yes, while they have a baby on their hip, while they're thinking about what they're going to cook and get the other kids who are coming home from school. I mean, it was otherworldly. First of all, I mean, this is seriously um, going back in time. I met people who had flown on planes but had never seen a truck, just because it's weird infrastructure there and hard to get around. But I loved every minute. And well, not every minute. No, not every minute.
Don't
I did
exaggerate
not.
now, Nancy.
Yeah, I know. No, the pit toilets during our training. No,
Not so much.
I no. And my idea now of roughing it is no room service. So, but the experiences um, were very dramatic for me, and none more than working with these young women and really coming to understand why I was there. I taught English and computer in a crazy school. It was run by Korean nuns from a Japanese order, which in and of itself is a little
odd.
weird.
Yeah.
And the other teachers were all Filipino missionaries. One Japanese volunteer from JICA, which is sort of the Japanese version of Peace Corps, and me. So it was a Pacific Rim experience, and I'd never experienced such racial animus in my life. And I've lived in cities here my whole life. So it was overt and not very smart either. But I really I learned a ton about all of those cultures. And again, in comparison to ours, um, I really came to appreciate again what opportunities we have. Things are not perfect here by a long shot, but we've been growing and changing. We still have ways to go, but to look at these young girls who are now young women in their 30s. Um, and the fun thing is we've been able to stay in touch thanks to Facebook. The girls started a Facebook group for alums, and I'm the only teacher they invited to join them because I taught them a word that encapsulated my experience and also finding myself there when I explained to them that I was there to be their advocate. And I taught them that word. Now, these are kids for whom English is a third or fourth language. They spoke it. Their grammar was probably a little better than their peers here. But they were fascinated when they'd never had anybody who said, I'm here for you. I want to see you succeed. How can I help you succeed? And in return, they taught me unconditional love. It was just such a glorious thing. And I discovered that helping people, and particularly being their advocate and standing up for them and being very clear about what's right and wrong, and what people, how people deserve to be treated, was a different experience for them. And so many of them, I mean, the stories that they have sent back to me about remembering because we talked about them going out and getting jobs. Again, we were in the capital city, so it was unusual in the country. But I knew that they had to go into Western businesses to try to get jobs. And I remember one little girl telling me, I did exactly what you said, Miss Nancy. I looked at them and I smiled and I stuck my hand out. And that's so completely atypical. In that country, women, even when they're going to smile, hold their hands over their mouths. So to have, a young woman walk in and, it's just things, those are little tiny things to us, and it means so much. So I try not to take as much for granted anymore.
So Nancy, your story reminds me, I spent 3 months in Taveuni, the largest island in Fiji, and had very similar experiences about the cultural differences, men and women. But here's my question to you. You left there having discovered your purpose, right? And learning unconditional love. And that purpose had something to do with advocacy. Do you think you were always an advocate and just didn't know it? It just kind of, the word came up, or you finally articulated. I mean, in your career, were you also acting as an advocate, or in your life prior to your Peace Corps mission? Do you think you were always an advocate?
I'm not sure if I was an advocate so much as a pathfinder.
Mm.
Um, I was very often the first woman everything in my business. Before I, went to college, I was a camp counselor for little girls. So I think that was probably the first time I had the experience of being responsible for somebody, but also teaching them. And I do think that I've always had a sense of what's right,
That's right.
and that compass. And I have gotten into trouble more than once by sticking up for what I believed in. And when we were talking before, one of the things I think that led to my, say, shortened corporate career, although 20 years isn't short, but was more often than not, I had an entrepreneurial mindset that I didn't have words for, but I kept feeling as though I was a virus that they were trying to kill because you don't fit in.
Mm.
And I think that I finally found what I'm supposed to be doing, and where not only am I good at it, but I am fed by it, emotionally and spiritually. And I've always taken more pleasure from seeing as I call them, my kids, the people I've hired and mentored through business, and see what they're doing and what they've become, men and women. Because in the beginning it was mostly men. But
Well, and I find it so
I'm not
interesting.
sure that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I find it so interesting when you talk about your path, because I've had similar feelings in terms of not when I don't feel that I'm on the path that's drawing me, it's a disaster. You know?
Yeah,
Something either
it's
feels bad or
inauthentic.
goes poorly or whatever. And when you feel like you're on the path you're supposed to be on, it's so much, not to say that it's easy, but it seems smoother, and you're more willing to take those risks or do that hard work and not feel bad about it or frustrated by it. Are you finding that on the path?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that the first thing that I had to do was, um, and it's something that I teach my clients now, especially those coming out of corporate, is I had to learn to define success in my terms,
Mm-hmm.
because the terms of corporate America didn't. I played along with it because you have to if you're in it, but they never really resonated for me. And I was fortunate to be in an industry that I discovered once I went into the dot-com world,
Mm-hmm.
is much different, where when it comes to women and thoughtfulness, and because publishing was a more genteel kind of industry, but um, yeah, you can just tell the difference. I remember a book I read years ago by a psychologist called Flo,
Oh
and
yeah, I read it.
it's not
Yeah.
an easy book, but as soon as you've experienced flow, you know what we're going after. It may just be a fleeting moment, but it's a sense of peace, and as though all is well with the world. I'm in the right place doing the right things. And as you said, it's not always easy. In fact, very often it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that I discovered, which was also very non-corporate, along this path, is how important women were to my learning. And I had to learn to trust women, because that's something else that corporate America does to any other. So whether you are a person of color, or you are a woman, or you have a different gender identity, um, corporate America says there can only be one of you because we need one. And so they set up this competition to be the one, and it pits all of us against each other, and they get their hands clean. And it's survival of the fittest. And so I didn't have a lot of women friends in corporate. They were generally the people I hired, mentored, and brought along. But other folks, it was like, kill or be killed. And that's not fun.
Mhm.
I found women to be both the best and the worst. And,
Yeah, it's an
but
interesting, I've had that experience both ways as well, where it's just cutthroat and I'm gonna beat you so I get my share. And then I've also had very collaborative, supportive work environments with women. And I think the culture of a corporation or wherever you are plays heavily into that, whether everyone is feeling supported or they do want the one token representative of each group.
yes,
That is not a healthy thing. The healthy thing is to be inclusive and inviting and support anybody who could do the job, clearly.
Yep.
But it's an interesting dynamic to have felt both of those things. So when you talk about your relationships with women, one of the things you mentioned the other day when we spoke was about about educating women, and if you want to educate a village, educate women. So clearly that has come from your Peace Corps experiences, but how do you translate that to American women? Do you feel the same way? I mean,
great question. Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the lessons they trained us, and in basically training us for our jobs and about the culture in Papua New Guinea. Peace Corps does a wonderful job of training. It was quite remarkable for 12 weeks in country training. But one of the concepts was the reason that Peace Corps focuses so heavily on women, and this was in the 90s. So it wasn't entirely unknown, but it certainly wasn't as vivid, shall we say, as today. But the idea of wanting to have the biggest impact, women are the natural teachers and the caregivers of families and villages. And so if you wanted to impact the village, yeah, you might have to find out who the boss man was. But if you wanted to make change, you worked through the women because they are relational. And it was just so vivid to see that there, that it made me look again at how we are in the United States. And you can see that if you're looking. But I'd never been looking before. So that was pretty interesting. And I felt it so strongly when I left corporate and started my own business. The first thing I did, because I found out right away I didn't know anything about small business, the concept of it, the market, anything, nothing about it. And the more that I learned, the more stunned I was because, first of all, I had so thoroughly drunk the corporate Kool-Aid. I was raised by a corporate guy. In fact, I often say I wasn't raised, I was managed up, because he was a major Peter Drucker acolyte. And so, yeah, I probably knew more about Peter Drucker than Mickey Mouse when I was young.
Oh, funny.
But my dad was also a big believer in management by objectives, MBO. And imagine my surprise when I grew up and found out that not all 5-year-olds sit at the kitchen table on Saturday morning to write their goals for the week. It seemed normal to me. And so as a consequence, I have always been an inveterate planner. And I can't not plan, which is also has its pluses and minuses. My husband can tell in the morning, he goes, "You're still planning before you get out of bed, aren't you?" I went,
Going down
"Yep,
your
gotta
checklist.
know. That's it. Step one, step two, gotta remember this, da da da." Um, but that really helped a lot in starting a business. But as I was going to say, the first thing I did was realizing that I didn't know anything was I discovered NABO, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners, which is how we met.
Mm-hmm.
And that my NABO sisters allowed me to learn all over them for a lot of years. And I've been part of the organization for 15 years now, and have made some just incredible relationships and learnings, and learned about working with women, and with type A business owner women who are rarely shrinking violets. Um, but but it also has been part of that journey, um, and uh, and led me into my business, which was basically business advisory and helping small business owners plan and get a foundation for their business and get a clear success destination in mind, it's, as their North Star to keep an eye on, as they build and grow and scale. Um, and so I started, as you mentioned, a couple of different programs. In the beginning, I just did one-to-one, very high touch, because I had not yet learned in the beginning the difference between building a job and building a business. And if you are all the business, then that's a job. You
Yeah, you don't
don't,
have a business, you have a
yeah,
job.
you have
Yeah.
a job. And, they're both valid, but they're different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I discovered, largely through my work with NABO, that I could help people in a group more than just one on one. I could reach more people. And so I started CEO School for Women. And that goes back to actually an interview I read with Steve Ballmer when he was CEO of Microsoft. And he said, they were asking him, how did you know what to do as a CEO? And he said, well, there was no CEO school. I used to go to Starbucks and sit with my peers and we would compare notes. And, basically he was describing a mastermind. And so I started, basically the equivalent of masterminds in our Atlanta chapter in NABO. And I learned so much from that. And I dare say the women who were involved in that did too, because people would tend to stay with that for years. So you really get to know each other and each other's businesses. And I all of this time I'm realizing what I did wrong, because I made every mistake. I made every mistake coming out of corporate. And so I said, I can't be the only one who's drunk that Kool-Aid, but who has this drive to do something differently and do something, that I can own and make a difference. And so that's when I started CEO School for Women, and where we focus on building skills. I don't like all of the shiny toys that are out there and that serve just to distract. I much prefer people to have an opportunity to learn something, really integrate it into themselves so that they can continue. And that's a building process, not a, well, try this and see if it works, what we used to call in publishing spaghetti publishing.
Spaghetti publishing, yeah.
Throw it up on the,
ceiling,
see what sticks. Yeah.
So Nancy, not to interrupt that train of thought, but here's where my brain is going with all of that. So you've taken this Peace Corps that you're an advocate, combined with your corporate experience of not feeling fulfilled, combined with this management by objective kind of idea. And you've gone after a very precise niche, which is women, knowing that if you can change a village, you change the women, right? You educate the women. So you've combined all of these beautiful things from your past into a business.
Right.
So I guess here's my question. This is kind of an off the cuff question. What do you see as the one or two or three biggest issues that women CEOs, women business owners seem to have, that constantly comes up in these groups, constantly comes up as a question? What do you see as some of the biggest challenges?
I think that fear of failing is a big one. And I see that a lot with folks who have always been achievers. And it's related but different from imposter syndrome. Everybody's talking about imposter syndrome now, as they have been for about 20 years. But not everybody has it, but we all go through periods of it. And I think it's similar when you're doing something new to you. There is a fear of failing. And one of the big things that we say in CEO school is it's not failing, it's learning, as long as you learn from it. And that's actually something I got from probably the best boss I ever had in publishing. And he was very far ahead of his time, and made it okay to fail as long as you learned. And he'd come in afterwards and say, "What did you learn?" And then he'd go, "It's worth it." And that was like such countercultural stuff. But I think that one of the other things that I've learned is women, because we are more relational, we learn really well from each other. And because there is more of an inherent trust. And I just find women so much more open than our male counterparts in admitting what we don't know. It's like, how can we help each other if we're not straight about it? And so giving people a safe place to say everything, and knowing that nobody's gonna use it against you, nobody's gonna laugh at you. You're probably going to answer questions that a whole bunch of other people have, but you were the brave one to actually say it. And so, we talk a lot about the difference between being fearless, which I think is setting people up to fail, and being courageous, which is being afraid but doing it anyway. That was something that friend who told me to go to Peace Corps told me while I was there, because I said, "I am scared for my life." It was a little sketchy. And he said, "Yeah, but you're doing it anyway." And he said, "That's courage." And I am proud of surviving that experience, but it really does make a big difference. And so much of it is, how do I fit into this world, and how do I carve that place for me? And I think part of it too, and I've attributed a lot of this to age, is caring less about what other people think and more of what you think.
Whatever.
It's why doesn't anybody tell us this?
It's like you have to learn it on your own. I think 50 is a magic number. I'm about to hit 50 and I'm feeling more and more and more like that. Like I don't have time to deal.
It continues.
Yeah.
It keep going, gets better. And I think that too is, so it's that village idea again of where it's not that we're competitive with each other as much as we understand the power. And one of our little sayings in CEO school is never underestimate the power of a circle of.
Yes.
And it is like, I just got chills again. I do it every time I say that. It must be true.
It's true. We believe you.
Yeah.
We agree.
Yeah.
And that's, as you know, Nancy, is so much of what the Coterie is committed to, is to build that sense of community, because we share your vision that a community of like-minded women that are collaborative and encouraging and create a safe, loving, accepting space for other women where they can come and discuss this and that, including business. There's where we can not only feed each other, but eat at a buffet, right? That
Right.
we're given all this nourishment while we come with our own casserole, so to speak, right?
Yes.
That analogy, I know, sounds kind of silly, but that's kind of what it is for women.
Yeah.
They bring and they share, and we all leave refreshed, encouraged, edified, and ready to tackle our worlds, whether it's a business world, as an entrepreneur, corporate individual, or a mama, in whatever challenges we're up against, having a community of women to share it with. We love what you're up to with the CEO school. We bless it. We just are so excited for what you're up to. Unfortunately, we have like a billion more questions, but we need to wrap up for time. I am wondering if you could give us some contact information if folks want to reach out to you personally, Nancy, learn more about the CEO school, learn more about you. How might they get hold of you?
First of all, if you have my name, you'll discover by plugging it into the Google machine that I'm everywhere on social and have been for the past 20 plus years. So you're going to learn more than you ever wanted to know. But you can also find CEO School and Corporate Refugees on Facebook. And we have both pages there where I will share lots of different inspirational quotes. I'm an inveterate clipper of articles. And so I share lots of different articles about women in business and about the stories behind women and our struggles and our successes and our failures, and as well as, you know, having some opportunities to connect in there as well. So those are probably the best ways. We do have a CEO School for Women.com website that is in sore need of updating. But I have good volunteer syndrome, so I've also just become a SCORE mentor, and so my hours are not as plentiful as they once were. But that's one of the challenges of having good volunteer syndrome. So
yes.
Anyway, but it's just been such a delight to be with you guys, and I do feel as though we have found kindred spirits. So.
We are sisters. We are sisters, girl.
Absolutely.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate hearing your story, and I just think it's so interesting. I can't wait for other people to see it and comment and engage with us.
Great. Happy to be here.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
What do you think is the #1 challenge for franchisors? You got it, getting the right fit franchisee. And as you know, poor fit franchisees are often poor performers. Poor fit franchisees cost more to train and support. Poor fit franchisees are rarely satisfied or compliant, which can lead to validation issues. not a good place to be. But now there is a solution. Zoracle Profile's scientific spot-on match program. Working with top broker groups in franchising, Zoracle has created a platform that scientifically matches the broker's candidate to the right fit franchise brand. Spot On Match predicts the compatibility, performance, and viability of a prospective franchisee. Spot On Match gives the franchise development team a data-driven and scientific approach to selling franchises. This is how it works. Zoracle works with each franchisor to establish their top performer blueprint. This research assesses current franchisees to determine the key psychographic indicators that separate high performers from mid to low performing franchisees. The final result of the research is the brand's Eclipse report, which compares prospective franchisees to a franchise system's high performers. Finally, brokers are running a spot-on profile on each of their franchise prospects. These profiles are then scientifically bumped up against the franchisor's high performer algorithms, and the match process begins. Dashboards are built for the franchisor and the broker to make sure the process is smooth and trackable. Right Fit matches instantly. Find out how you can be a spot-on match member. Save time. Stop guessing. Start matching. Call Zoracle Profiles.
Welcome to Women in the Know, where we discuss everything from politics and policy to relationships and marketing. We take the lessons we have learned through business, through our relationships, and through our interviews to share with you and hope we learn something new at the end of the day. So Rebecca, we talked to Nancy Chorpenning, who had spent some time in the Peace Corps. And one of the little things that she said that for some reason just struck me funny and true is that by being in the South Pacific in New Guinea, she learned to appreciate American men because of the patriarchal society that she got to witness firsthand and the things that women went through. So what do you think about that? What do you think about, because sometimes American men get a bad rap and we talk about, things that need to improve. And there are certainly things that need to improve in the workforce for women and, with equity and that kind of thing. But what do you think about that comment? Because it struck me as something so interesting to think about.
Well, I've always loved men. So, but now after the way she framed it, it's made me love American men even more, because you're right. There's a different way men and women interact here in the US. I'm born and raised in Switzerland, and I noticed a big difference when I came here to the US also. So, I mean, when you're in an environment like Papua New Guinea and some other cultures where the way she described it is women did all of the work. Men didn't even have jobs. So women had babies on their hip. They were in the fields. I think she said it was peanuts they were harvesting. And then they had to drag those things and then sell them in the marketplace and then walk back and take care of the, the garden and cook and clean. And they could do everything, while men didn't seem to have any of those kinds of moral or financial responsibilities to their spouses nor to their children. In the US, there is no doubt, kind of at the core, at least in my generations, there's this provider, this protector in men, where they want to step up. Largely they want to. I know there's always exceptions to the rule, but they want to protect, they want to provide, they want to be an active part of the decisions at home and how the direction of the family is going. So it really is fascinating when we complain about, our men here in the US, when we compare them to men in other cultures like the one Nancy experienced. We really do have some fabulous guys here in the US of A.
Well, we do. And when you talk in her pre-interview, I don't think she mentioned it in the actual interview, but she talked about women becoming skilled or educated in order to get a higher bride price. So it wasn't a legitimate desire for women to be elevated or empowered. It was to make them more valuable as basically stock.
They were dowry. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, and in the South, and probably, you know, elsewhere too, but it's very prevalent in the South, where you have the chivalry, the men who open doors for you, that you say yes ma'am and yes sir to your elders. I haven't lifted a heavy thing since I married my husband. I mean, and he's taught my boys to lift heavy things. So if I come in with groceries, the first thing my boys will say is, do you need help unloading? Whoever is here just automatically says, or if they see me walking in with something, they take it from my hand. Now, that's not to say that we don't have some legitimate inequities. We're not saying we don't recognize that exists. However, we do have this desire, this male desire to take care of their women or their families or whatever, as long as it doesn't go into, like, my husband is very, very, very much like that. But it does not diminish me as a woman. He would never do it with the intention of holding me down or putting me in a place. It's because he loves and protects, and he feels that that's his role. So, you know, intention is a lot of the feeling that you get when someone does that for you. And you can tell when it's genuine, and you can tell when it's trying to keep you in your place.
Right.
But I think in general, American men are not, at least certainly not consciously, trying to say, you're down here and, you know, you're only valuable to me if you have these qualities, education or appearance or whatever. So it's a nice thing to get some perspective from someone who has truly been engrossed in a patriarchal society, to then come home and say, I remember, you know, just even traveling to Europe, you're so happy to have a grocery store, because in so many places you have to go to the butcher and the baker and all the different stores, or you don't have everything centrally located, or having accessible bathrooms in restaurants. I mean, it's just some of these simple luxuries that we have. I think it's always good to go somewhere different and come back and appreciate what you have.
Yeah. And, you know, for me, it's interesting as a baby boomer to see that men, even in generations younger, my grandson-in-law is similar to what you're talking about with your husband. So he's 22 years old, almost 23 years old. And he has this wiring that says it's his job, you know, like you said, to carry heavy things and to make sure the mortgage is paid, and do what is necessary to protect the heart and the body of the woman he loves, and who happens to be pregnant, which is going to make me a great grandmother. But it's interesting to see that it's carried on. Now, there's no doubt that the last few generations, that's been focused on equality, may not have that same kind of macho-ness that we have seen. But I think some of that is us as women accepting they're physically stronger than we are, and they have a true desire to protect us and to allow that, and not to deflate them or emasculate them, because this is something that is more innate in them. And then here in the US, we still continue to see that. Even, like I said, in this last generation Z, I still see it in my grandson-in-law. I see it in my grandson, who is 15. He is constantly making sure I'm okay, his mom is okay, his sister's okay, right? And of course, he has a handsome macho son as his dad, my son, as his dad. So it's the men teaching the men what they're gifted at, what they're capable of, allowing them to step into their masculinity, and us as women allowing it, that it's okay for them to be masculine. It's okay for them. And then we get to do the parts that we're really good at as women.
It's fun. It's funny to watch the children, like Luke. A couple of years ago, his boyfriend's mother had come into town, maybe last year, I don't remember, but he was adamantly trying to open the door for her in the car and let her get in first. And he said, all I could hear was Donald in my ear going, you know, letting me have it if I didn't open the car door for the woman and let her, like, she was trying to let him sit in the front. He's like, no. Like, my stepdad would kill me if I made you sit in the back. Like,
he's a good teacher.
It was so ingrained in his head, you know, that he was going to treat her like a man should treat a woman. And it was just kind of funny, the whole internal dialogue in his head.
It's beautiful. Donald did a great job. And And Luke stepped up to do what he felt was the right thing to do with this woman. So
she probably had no idea the struggle, the internal stress that was causing him.
like,
She wasn't going to sit in the front.
Oh, that's so funny.
It is funny.
Well, I love this conversation. We are focused on women, but boy, do we appreciate the men in our lives and the men that support us as women. We couldn't do it without them, at least not to the level that we would like to do this. So thank you to all the men that support us, that open doors for us and protect us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will cheers to that.
Hear, hear.
The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Woman will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.
Welcome to Ask Beck and Liz, where no topic is off limits. We want to answer your questions about business, life, and everything in between. If you have a question for us, send it to ask@beckandliz.com. That's ask@beckandliz.com. So the question that I have for us today, Elizabeth, actually spurns from our conversation with Nancy Chorpenning with the CEO School for Women is the name of her company that she founded. And she was telling us her life story about having this successful career building companies as a executive, climbing that corporate ladder, doing what she does, and then just boom, one day deciding to end it all and go to Papua New Guinea in the Peace Corps. So my question is that crazy? Is that something you would do? Just boom, go into the Peace Corps.
I don't know. I don't know that I would. And I don't know. She said she's been married for 10 years, so I'm guessing she wasn't married. I think she probably doesn't have kids. If she did, they were old enough. But I don't know. That's such a dramatic thing to just pick up and leave. I don't know if I could do it. I've got so many family members. I'm so tied into that. That would be really hard for me to do. I admire the idea of it. But I'm realizing I'm probably not a risk taker in that way. What about you?
I would do it.
Yeah, I knew you would.
I am a risk taker. I like new challenges and doing new things, but I think you're right. It really is a stage of life thing. Mm-hmm. She giving up corporate America, right, and selling her condo. I think she was in Baltimore at that point. Those sound like massive decisions, but if you have children and you have a spouse, you may rethink those kinds of decisions. I don't have those. My kids are grown. I don't have a spouse. I'm looking, by the way, anybody listening, I'm looking for good referrals. I'd love to be married. But in the meantime, the Peace Corps is definitely an option. I would definitely do something like that. I can tell you examples in my history where I've made dramatic changes like that. And it's been some of the best decisions I've ever made. But it does take that courage and to be able to step into the unknown. She calculated it to some degree. She did some research. She talked to a friend. She did some research before she just sort of signed up the next day.
Well, and I think to your point, she wasn't doing it on a whim. She knew at that point that she was not happy in corporate America. She knew that she was feeling stifled by that life, and was looking for more purpose. And I think that when that kind of thing drives you, it doesn't feel as risky. Like she knew she had to do something to find the path she was supposed to be on and to feel fulfilled. So I think, you know, when you do risk, when you take a risk, you're analyzing the risk benefit, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be in a point where I've heard so many stories of people who make transformational decisions, and they are to a point where they're like, if I didn't make a change, I was gonna die. I mean, some of them are that dramatic. I'm not going to be able to continue living in this way. So I don't think hers was to that point, but I think she was to a place where she had to make a change to find something more fulfilling and purposeful in her life. So to her, it might not have felt as risky as it seems when you just talk about it off the cuff.
Right. It's true. But it's interesting how quickly we can get into a comfort zone, especially if we've had success like she has had, where we're comfortable, we've mastered a certain thing. There's an identity in the success that she had. So it takes something to step out of your identity as a successful C-suite corporate executive and go into something that, you know, doesn't have that same, you know, responsibility, identity, status, money, whatever it is that you're used to. So that comfort zone is so easy for all of us to get into. It takes, like you said, either some fire under our butt, we're so unhappy, we're so unfulfilled, or it takes some really massive carrot of some sort, something that really we can see by doing this gives us great value. For me, and I think this is why it's allowed me to constantly take risks that others might not, is I have this insatiable need to learn. And I know if I stay in my comfort zone, I'm no longer going to learn. So I have to do things that I've not done before. So this hunger for learning and knowledge can be satiated. So I think it's learning that causes me to take risks, and for others maybe it's challenge, lack of fulfillment, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. That's one of the things I've been thinking about all day since we talked to her, is who or what about that who causes them to do something like that. But the gifts that she got from that decision, when she talks about how she came back and she calls it seeing everything through a different lens because of that experience, I think those are the things that change you. You know, as she came back, changed in a sheer determination to make impact and help women and find that true purpose and path. And she seems to have found it and seems very happy about where she is now compared to where she was before that decision. So clearly it was a good decision. I mean, and I think it's an amazing experience, period. Anybody who could should try to do something like that, you know?
It's fascinating. You know, it's the old saying, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. And she has definitely benefited hugely. I think that's a word, hugely.
I think so.
From taking this risk. Right? She learned a lot about herself. She applied everything she learned to now what she is doing and helping other women along their path of discovering their purpose, discovering their passions, and to fully express themselves, much like what we do at the Coterie.
Absolutely. I enjoyed the heck out of that interview. So
me too. And you will too. If you listen.
I'm glad. Here's the thing. She came to our Hump Day happy hour at our open house, and we gave away an interview slot to somebody who, I guess it was somebody brought a friend or something. We had some little contest. And so
I can't remember what it was. Some kind of competition we had.
Yeah, some little competition. And so Nancy won it. And we would not have known that story if she had not come to happy hour and then it all worked out the way that it did. And I think she's going to be such a valuable asset to us knowing her.
Yes.
So you never know. You should come to Hump Day happy hour open house.
Yeah.
The next one is going to be the first weekend in what is it? The first weekend in April.
Yeah, first week in April.
No, March.
So you're talking about the open house.
Yeah, the first Thursday of April is what we're going to do. So, stay tuned. You could be the next person that we can't live without.
Winner, chicken dinner, right?
There you go.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. This is Beck and Liz signing off and wishing you another purpose-filled and profitable week.